Hello, and thank you for joining this Engerati studio interview. We're located at Asian Utility Week 2016. I'm Denise, and with me I have Gordon Gielis. He's a technical director at IoT Billing International. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
In this session, we'll obviously be talking about Internet of Things. So perhaps you could just give us a bit of an overview of how IoT is impacting billing and billing solutions within this particular region.
Well, the biggest impact on billing solutions is that the nature of the transactions for IoT are somewhat different to normal billing. You tend to get very large numbers of transactions of very small value. So the billing system needs to cater for quite complex billing, but in extremely large volumes. So your system needs to be very efficient. It needs to be able to handle clients that have very large numbers of services. So a typical energy service historically might only have 3 or 4 meters on it. For IoT billing, you might have 30,000 different meters on it. So the onboarding and the billing needs to be changed to reflect that.
What is driving the need for your IoT billing?
Here in Asia, it's mainly about reducing energy loss and trying to understand your network requirements better than it. Not a driver typically of improved customer service, but that will come. In the more developed countries, what they're looking for is better information feeding back to the clients, to the consumer. In other markets, it's attempting to minimise network losses through theft and inefficiencies.
What are the challenges around adopting IoT billing solutions?
Well, it's very much an IT problem, and you need an IT style of mindset to attract it, to attach it. This is a very emerging market. Standards are in a state of flux, so one has to take a more entrepreneurial view of how you're going to roll your network out. So typically now what we're looking at are pilots, and I think that's the way to go, so that you can test run your systems on a small set before rolling it out to the larger world at large.
Any specific trends within this focus for Asia over, let's say, the next year to 2 years?
Well, in Asia we're seeing not the same levels of retail contestability that you have in Europe or America and Australia. So their networks are attempting to get some form of contestability by going to what's called submetering. Now, submetering is where one creates a mini utility for a particular building or an apartment block or a user group and provides those with enhanced services. The considerable difference in purchasing power amongst Asian consumers also drives that trend, because a large number of upper middle class Asians are now being able to afford these sorts of services, want the smartphone apps, but there's still a large body who really can't afford it. So you need to target your market, and a good way to target your market is by the submetering style or smart building style of project.
Integration, cloud technology, sophisticated billing, IoT billing, deep functionality. What's happening with that within this region? Where do you see that going over the next couple of years?
Well, at the moment, most of the billing is centred around connectivity and usage. It's about subscriptions and it's about raw data, internet data usage. In the future, as with every part of the world, not just in Asia, we're going to see more content billing on the data. So being able to look into the data. Now, in order to do that, you really need very large data analytics systems, right? So those come at a cost, and probably the best solution for that is to have an integrated system that integrates your MDAS, your billing and your analytics in the same application, or in a pre-integrated application at the very least. Because the CapEx costs of having to integrate different silos of expertise are extremely high. So one should be looking for a proven integration pathway for those 3 silos.
The Asian utility business model is definitely changing. I think, as is the rest of the world. They're wanting to diversify their operations, especially in billing and customer engagement. what do you think is driving that, and what are the opportunities as a result of that?
Well, the opportunities here is, again, the same as the rest of the world. In Europe and in Australia and North America, there's a high level of retail contestability. And so what you're seeing in those markets is entrants into the market that are not traditional electricity companies. So in Australia and Europe, it's very common now to buy your electricity from your ISP or from your telco. And whilst the same level of retail contestability does not yet exist here in Asia, you can see the writing on the wall. Now, once retail contestability arrives, the churn rates are very, very high in some markets. In New Zealand, for example, the churn rate can be as high as 28% between retailers per annum. Now, a number of customers have addressed those concerns, one by submetering, because you're providing enhanced services to a small collection of people in a building or in some other user group. And other ways of doing it is by expanding their product mix to include internet, to include PABX, security services and those sorts of things, to give a bit more bind in on the client and to try and keep ISPs out of the retail market as well.
IoT billing.
Yes.
What are the exciting, are there any exciting markets that the company is really focusing in on at the moment? Any exciting developments that you're seeing?
Well, the smart metering is of course a big feature, but we're seeing an awful lot of interest in waste management solutions, particularly. Waste is a huge problem, and reflecting the true cost of waste management back to the users gives them a valuable feedback to reduce consumption of waste management services, i.e. to recycle and to do all those good green things that we talk about. Typically at the moment those costs are just passed on in an undifferentiated way to the consumer. We're seeing more and more that councils and other utilities want to pass those costs back on to the client to give them some price signals so that they don't overuse the waste service or they try and recycle.
All right, all about sustainability, I suppose.
Absolutely.
My final question to you, what would be your advice to utilities, perhaps specifically to this region? I know it's a large one, but anything in particular that you would like to give advice on?
Well, don't bind yourself into any one vendor, be it a smart meter vendor or an MDAS vendor, but particularly on the hardware side of things. A lot of the smart meter manufacturers and hardware manufacturers will bundle in some software, but it's awfully hard to extricate yourself from using that software for other meters. So try and understand that the problem is both a hardware and a software problem, and probably should be purchased separately to give you maximum flexibility. Because hardware is changing rapidly, so you don't want to bind yourself in too early. So my recommendation to utilities here in the Asian market is to attempt to pilot hardware using submetering projects or small community projects, but do pay more attention to the software side of things and make sure that you don't necessarily just go down the path of least resistance and accept the software from the hardware vendors. Try and be independent of it.
Sound advice.
I hope so.
Gordon, thank you so much for joining us in the studio, and thank you for tuning into this session. Should you wish to gain more insight into Asian Utility Week, please have a look at our other videos on the playlist on engerati.com. Thank you.
Thank you.